Hello, welcome back, and welcome to the new subscribers, guys. Welcome. I think I'm done saying the word welcome. I wanted to record this video because I wanted to share a story with you guys, and this story is I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me. My heater is on. I'm going to try and fix the sound in the editing. I did for the last video as well. I'm trying to get better at editing. I still suck, but we'll see. I want to share a story, and this story really speaks to how our limiting beliefs manifest into diagnoses, behaviors, traits, problems, yada yada yada. This story begins with, or in summer, on a completely different social media platform, not YouTube, basically. I had written something about David Goggins, and I'm losing my voice. And for those that don't know, David Goggins is a public figure. He used to be in the Navy SEALs, and he's a motivational speaker. And if I was to describe him, how would I describe him? How shall I put this? What his personality is like? Kind of like your guy that thinks no pain, no gain, but times 500,000. He's the kind of guy that thinks pain is your best friend. I would even go as far as to say he's a masochist when it comes to self-flagellation, right? And I don't agree with that approach. There was a time I was a fan of his. I don't have anything against him personally. I just don't think it's a very holistic, wholesome approach, and certainly not the one that I advocate on this channel or even in my life. I had written a post, not kind of being derisive or anything towards him, but just to kind of explain my point of view that I don't believe self-flagellation ever works. I laid my point out pretty well, right? So I received a message from a complete stranger, and it was a guy, and he basically wanted to know more about my viewpoint. Obviously, I come from more of a spiritual, transpersonal, psychological approach. So I kind of explained to him my reasonings. Now, he felt comfortable enough, and this is a common theme in my life. People tend to trust me very quickly with their problems. I can see why, but it's always a bit, I don't know, overwhelming sometimes, because this happens in real life too. Like, guys, I've had strangers trauma dump, literally talking 45 minutes straight without asking me a single question about my life. I mean, it doesn't happen so much anymore. I think my boundaries have just gone way up, but this was like a year ago, 2 years ago. It was pretty bad. Back to my story. We started to talk. He started to tell me a lot of things he had gone through, and he was basically stuck in his life, because I understand why men specifically are drawn to figures like David Goggins. I was even drawn to David Goggins. I've always had a pretty masculine approach to achieving goals, so that kind of spoke to me at the time. Obviously, the approach was not working for him, which is why he wanted to know about my approach. And obviously, I come from the approach of being before doing, which is completely unconventional. Obviously, to not you guys, because you guys are aware with Neville's teachings and the metaphysical laws, yada yada yada. Now, guys, I understand that the average person is not into manifestation. Not only that, I don't think the average person is open to learning about it, because, to be honest, it's completely unorthodox, right? It's not the way you've been conditioned to believe about the creative process. I'm not the type of person to convince someone unless they really want to know how I do it, what my source is. I'm not going to tell them, because, you know, most people are just going to be dismissive, and I don't want to be a derisive dickhead back. So yeah, so I keep my mouth shut. But with him, I really wanted to help this guy, and he seemed really earnest and sincere in that he wanted help. He had gone through a lot in his life, like a lot of loss, a lot of trauma. I felt like I wanted to help him. Obviously, this then spoke to my overextending tendencies, because bear in mind, this is a complete stranger, but there were lessons we both learned eventually. His main concern was that he had ADHD, and he felt that because of his ADHD, he was not able to apply for jobs, he was not good enough. He struggled with his sense of self-worth. Sounds familiar. Obviously, I'm not gonna be like, just assume that you have your job, because again, the average person is not going to be interested in that. They want practical solutions, which is why I felt like I wanted to come back on my channel, because I think I'm very good at grounding these things in practicality. I have found it equally jarring to watch YouTubers in this community just say assume it, because even though I have read Neville plenty of times, I have a lot of opinions about the law. Even though the law is simple, which is the argument that most people like to make, it doesn't mean that people's lives are necessarily. Okay, you can argue that that's a limiting belief. That's fine. But try and tell that to someone who has gone through abuse. I don't know, who's in a dire situation right now. It's a very difficult thing to tell a person who's literally in survival mode that they can just go back home and imagine the state of the wish fulfilled. It's not practical, okay? And I am all for practicality. I mean, I can't even stress how important it is to ground these things. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go from, you know, survival to thrival with Neville's teachings. Of course you can. But can you imagine, with the mind's tendency, with its superimposing tendencies, how difficult it's going to be to radically change your perspective? You can't even be mad at a person if they can't do that. I don't think I'd be able to do that. I have gone through a lot of abuse in my life, but if someone had told me back then to do this, where on earth would I have the time, the mental fucking capacity or energy to imagine a better future? You're just trying to get by. Back to my story, he shared with me that because he doesn't have a job, he feels really low about himself, and you know, he feels he needs to take care of his family equally. Obviously, societal pressure is there, cultural pressure is there. We are from the same culture. Comes from a very patriarchal home. I understood what he was trying to say. His main thing that he kept bringing up is, I have ADHD. I have ADHD, and even though, you know, receiving the diagnosis really helped him kind of figure out what was wrong with him, it felt like he was almost using it as a perpetual excuse in the conversations we were having. And if you're familiar, this is very much analogous to Alfred Adler's psychology, where he propositioned that, you know, if you give your mind a goal, it's gonna give you reasons to argue for it. So that goes for your limiting beliefs. I said to him, and this was a bold claim, and I'm just happy that he didn't get mad at me. I said, your ADHD is a manifestation of just the pressure you put on yourself since a very young age. Because what he had told me, it just made sense. It made sense why he would receive such diagnosis. He had put on himself an incredible amount of pressure, societally, culturally imposed, you know, keeping in line with the theme of patriarchy in his home, to make shit happen. Obviously being drawn to figures like David Goggins on top of that, and feeling really bad about himself as a result. I mean, I was just glad that he didn't take it offensively. He had every reason to shut me out, because, I mean, I tried to be a little bit diplomatic about it, but my aim wasn't to make him feel bad or make him feel like he wasn't doing enough. I was just trying to explain to him that you are so under the constraint of time because you think you should be here and you're here. And because of the immense pressure, what do you think is going to happen to your focus, your attention span? That's ADHD. Now, I don't have any recondite special knowledge on ADHD. kind of just wanted to tell him that it's not just a limiting belief. You've supplied your brain a goal, right? And the goal is that I'm not going to be able to meet the targets that my family set up for me, that have been culturally set up for me, even societally. The goal is that I'm just not good enough. And you're going to find every fucking reason in the book to not feel good enough. And it's going to manifest into conditions, psychological, physiological conditions, that are going to further superimpose themselves in your life, making you feel like you're not worthy. So I was like, you need to address your sense of self-worth. He had said to me that he imagines his partner to have something wrong with them physically, because only then would he feel he is worthy, or perhaps sometimes even more, to have a partner at all. This isn't something to be ashamed of. I think a lot of people catastrophize in these ways. It's just a fantasy. It's a way for the mind to kind of make you feel that you are enough, or that you are only worthy of attracting a partner who has some sort of physical ailment. So we would go into long discussions about why he was having these thoughts. Anyway, this carried on for 2 months. Like, my main objective at the time was to help him feel better about himself, to reclaim his sense of self-worth, right? There came a point after 2 months where I felt that he wasn't really applying what I was saying, but he was rather intellectualizing what I was saying. So I kind of had to put the brakes on the conversation a little bit, and I said to him, like, you gotta do something here, bro. Obviously said it in a polite way. He then went ahead and did what he needed to do. We didn't speak for about, I'd say, 2 months. And after 2 months, he messaged me extending his gratitude towards me, because he said, that I changed his ways of thinking entirely, and he ended up getting a job in a really, really big firm that he could only have dreamed of. And, I felt super grateful just for the fact that he had reached out to me to tell me this, but also that I guess I just derive a lot of satisfaction from just knowing that it works. Every single time it works. And it makes me feel like I want to share this, the way that I organize my thoughts and beliefs on, YouTube, because I have this platform, hence I'm sharing the story. The main thing I want to focus on from this story is that if you come from a state of I'm not enough, believe me, your brain is going to give you enough evidence to make sure that you're correct in what you believe. So the state, again, is going to be reflected. Just like him, he came from the point of view of I'm not enough. And you think the circumstance is the thing that's making you feel not good enough. It's not. The root of the problem is sense of self-worth. Most of us tend to think that the circumstance, which is a result or the effect of the cause, right? And the cause is always the state. So we think the circumstance is the thing that's making us feel not good enough. So let's say in his case, didn't have a job, had ADHD, and therefore he thinks that's the reason he's not good enough. No. There are plenty of people, I'm sure, that have ADHD that still feel like they have sufficient sense of self-worth. And then there are people that are unemployed that still feel they matter. It doesn't perturb their sense of self-worth. Your sense of self-worth should not be dictated by a metric at all. It just is. You're going to keep arguing with your limiting beliefs if you keep looking at the negative of the situation that's already in the form of matter, so to speak, in the form of the circumstance. Every situation has a positive and a negative. It is just a fact, okay? I'm sure right now he's probably thinking, oh my God, I have ADHD and I have gone through fucking shit in my life. I've still landed a job where I thought like it was freaking impossible to. Do you see how now your ailments, now your problems are all of a sudden in support of your self-esteem, your self-worth, because the same thing is going to now be in support of the state that's embodied. I went through a lot of abuse when I was younger, and you know, for a lot of other reasons, there was this feeling of always feeling different. Like I was like, oh God, I hate the fact that I feel so different, because all I wanted was just peace in my life. And it was so difficult to attain. It was impossible at the time, right? Because of my home situation. Now, when I look at it, because of what I've gone through, anytime now when I encounter a situation and I feel that fear come up, I think, come on, man, come on, Ash, like, you've gone through so much in your life. Like, what is this? Self-worth is reclaimed at every or any given opportunity. Basically, in essence, you're either arguing for your limitations or against it. And guess what? You get to decide. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say today. I trust it helped. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you. Bye bye.